I'm Dr. Amanda Moreno with my counterpart, Dr. Ann Hicks. We will be delivering these video lectures to you week to week throughout the semester. This week, we're going to be starting off talking about the philosophical roots of learning theory. We'll be referring to elements from the Bates text that you have, and on occasion we'll also refer to the additional readings that have been assigned throughout the various weeks of this course. Let's start off with this idea of there being a paradox of learning theories. There is an existence of many different learning theories that have been explored throughout time, and many of them have tremendous research support, and yet none of them can function as a one-size-fits-all approach. As we go to the next slide, there will be a couple of images that I'd like to give you a moment to just look at and consider what they might be a part of. They are merely a small portion of a larger idea. What do you see? Let's move on to some more images that perhaps give you a more complete idea of the larger image in question. Together, those small items form a complete picture of an elephant, and what you saw from one moment to the next changed or at least added to your understanding of the complete picture. This comes from a parable of the blind men and an elephant. A group of blind men, as you can see in our Far Side-esque image below, a group of blind men who've never come across an elephant before, and they learn and imagine what it's like merely by touch, because each one is touching a different part of the elephant, and only that one part, perhaps the side or the tusk, they can only describe the elephant based on their limited experience. And their descriptions are all completely different from those of their peers. In some versions of this story, they come to suspect that one person is dishonest and it becomes a whole thing. But the moral of this story is that humans have a tendency to claim absolute truth based on their experience, which is limited and subjective. And they may perhaps ignore other people's equally subjective and limited experiences, and yet there may be truth to both sets of experiences. When it comes down to it, many variables impact how a student gains and processes new information. And the method by which that information is provided is only one variable. Each learner's experience is unique specifically to them, not to mention the teacher, whose teaching persona and instructional methods are unique to them. These realities make for a web of complexity that we call education. And so we can better understand how different methods came to be and how they each may have validity in our educational sphere. You may even begin to assimilate elements of different learning theories into your own teaching, finding new inspiration alongside the theories that have served you well thus far. Ultimately, it's up to you as the educator to determine what methods and methodologies best serve your teaching styles and preferences. So let's begin with the most basic definitions of learning. Merriam-Webster defines it as the act or experience of one that learns, knowledge or skill acquired by instruction or study, or modification of a behavioral tendency by experience. This concept can be defined differently based on the activity in question. Are you gaining a new skill, such as an instrument? Are you taking in concrete information to build your knowledge bank, perhaps of music history? Are you making conscious changes in the pursuit of more effective practice habits? These are all forms of learning, even though the processes and/or outcomes may be different, and each may be achieved through different styles of teaching and learning. And so we come to the foundation of the content for this course, philosophy. You might say philosophy is the foundation of learning, as it is a love of wisdom, the study of the fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence. In Learning Theory Simplified, the primary text for this course, Bates begins with a discussion of the teachings of Socrates, followed by those of Plato, who was a student of Socrates, and finally the works of Aristotle, who was a student of Plato. With regard to Plato, Bates focuses on his cave allegory and the resulting belief in the separation of two distinct worlds, one of appearance, we might refer to that as perception, and one of reality, what actually is. Bates rightly states that Plato believed that truth and knowledge were to be found within each person. However, there's a very important aspect of Plato's ideas that Bates doesn't include. According to Plato, learning depends on having prior knowledge. Then Plato realized, where does that knowledge come from? So on and so forth, leading to his logic argument in what he referred to as the infinite regress conundrum. If all learning relies on prior knowledge, at least some knowledge must be innate, or there's nothing to base it on. It's nature, it's genetic. Plato came to believe that one enters the world with all knowledge already in place. Teaching helps us to then remember what is already in our minds, ergo learning equals remembering. This is often referred to as recollection theory. It might seem odd to believe that we're already born with all the knowledge, but can we prove it's wrong? Can we ask an infant to discuss what they already know? Plato's student, Aristotle, eventually came to view learning differently. He observed that we must be guided by the wisdom of others. He was perhaps the first to observe that students tend to match teacher expectations, what we might call the earliest description of nurture. And so, between Plato and Aristotle, we have the birth of the nature-nurture debate. Is it genetic? Is it our environment? Nearly 2,000 years later, during the Age of Enlightenment, this debate was more clearly and memorably delineated by the French philosopher René Descartes and the English philosopher John Locke. You may recall Descartes' claim of cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. This aligns with Plato's idea that all nature is innate. Locke's ideas, however, were thoroughly opposed to this and aligned with the ideas of Aristotle. Locke believed that we are born with a blank slate, what came to be known as tabula rasa. For Locke, the child enters the world with no innate knowledge, but rather has preformed dormant abilities, what we would call aptitude. Locke believed humans are biologically wired for learning. They're able to engage with the environment and adapt through forms of learning and memory building. Newborns begin experiencing the world through their senses. The brain's memory function allows for simple ideas to form. The brain has powers of abstraction, synthesis, etc., which then lead to complex ideas. This breadth of sensory and other experiences are the prerequisites for learning. So in summary, we had two opposing classic theories that eventually led to the nature-nurture debate and the development of many other learning theories that we will discuss throughout this course. Plato's idea of a full hard drive, if you will, and Locke's belief that we are born with full hardware and even software, but a blank hard drive. As you read Bates, please pay attention to the other philosophies he describes, and there are many. This will help you to engage with other theories throughout the semester.